Today's episode is brought to you by Forvis Mazars.
SoundCartel.
From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. Society in general might be more conscious of mental illness and its impacts on individuals and teams, but the stigma can persist. Founder and CEO of the SafeWatch mental health app, Shane Muller, says there are practical ways for small business owners and managers to support mental health in the workplace. Reducing stigma, focusing on employee strengths, and fostering trustful, open communication can transform workplace culture. Jeff Waters asked Shane if there was a personal trigger that prompted him to work in this space.
I'll start by saying no, it wasn't related to a personal experience. Although I have looked at the statistics before embarking on this journey, and I mentioned the stories that I read, mainly of young people, number one. And number two, the statistics, the rate of increase amongst young people when it comes to mental wellness challenges. That is actually what got my attention, because it appeared as if something wasn't done here, it would end up being your children and my children, because they all looked okay. As a matter of fact, even adults, most of the time, the overwhelming majority of people who end up in the very severe range, they looked okay. They looked normal. As a matter of fact, some of them looked like they just got straight A's or won the game on the weekend or something to that nature. They hit the goal.
So when you say the most severe, are we talking about people who become suicidal?
Absolutely. The most severe, because a lot of them had things going. They looked normal.
So how does this play out in a workplace? If I am a small business owner and one of my staff is saying they're okay, what do I do?
So what we've found in the workplace, that level of stigma is very strong within the organization, within people who represent the business. It's lighter amongst colleagues and peers, but even that, allowing this topic or the risk of being labeled does seem to have this strong pushback when it comes to mental wellness. So what we have done with SafeWatch in the workplace, two elements. One, we don't focus on this as a weakness identification app. We focus on resilience building and strengthening and self-development, value increasing.
There's always a next step for your business, so grow with clarity and confidence with Forvis Mazars, supporting you every step of the way. Move forward with Forvis Mazars. Visit forvismazars.com/au. That's FORVISMAZARS.com/au.
You use the word stigma, and you pointed out that employers can judge their employees quite badly if they show signs of mental distress. Now, how can we approach that? How can we change that situation?
One of the elements that we've seen that has worked quite well and subtly is focusing on the strengths of a person and building their strengths. So one example, instead of going, okay, and this again is one piece of research, instead of could we find an EAP service or a psychologist that the team could talk to? Instead, flipping it around and going, is there a high performance or a business coach that I can have my team engage with on a regular basis? And the coach is there to help the person get better, stronger, knock the goals out of the park, actually literally improve their value. Now, that coach would be open and have a clearer slate to see how that person's actually going. Because often the same 80% of challenges that someone has, if they were to talk to a therapist, often about 80% a coach would hear too. Someone giving out about a manager or money or the neighbors or whatever the topic is. They'd be similar. Now, the coach isn't there with the expertise of addressing it, but first thing that happens is it's voiced and sounded and identified, which is critical.
Maybe critical for the person who's suffering as well. They can self-define what's wrong with them for the first time.
Exactly, and have it in a dialogue method as opposed to looking up a website that gives them all the information that Google can give them about this issue that doesn't really help them.
But how does, going back to the stigma thing, how does this affect individuals and their career journey?
From the research we have seen, the people who genuinely are struggling from a mental wellness challenge, the stigma is so labeling if it is actually known amongst the business. It's tough to actually, as I mentioned, get that pay rise. Actually, some roles, it's hard to stay in the role. For example, if you're a pilot, it'd be tough for the airline to allow you to keep flying. I actually don't know of an airline that would, which we believe is a reason why many won't voice it. Otherwise, they will be grounded. Same thing with a surgeon, and we can go on. Maybe a politician. Do you mean if you listen very carefully?
A journalist.
Exactly.
It's a big issue in journalism. As soon as there's a question mark, you're gone because it's dangerous. You speak publicly.
Exactly. And what we have also seen in doing some research around the people who do talk about the challenges that they have had in the past, Jeff, there's one very subtle defining aspect. Most of them talk as if it was about the past, not here I am today. Today I'm a politician, I'm really struggling. Or here I am today, I'm a pilot, I'm struggling. You don't really hear that. We haven't in our research. It's often about this other person I used to be or this past, implying not now. And the reason for that behavior we've seen is because the establishment of politics or the establishment of the business called the airline, etc., has no place. They're not able to keep that same person in that same place.
How can we, if we are managers or colleagues, how can we support somebody that we think is unwell, but they're not either mentioning it or maybe haven't realized themselves?
As managers, sometimes it's possible that the manager's trust could be questionable. So the first aspect is to actually self-assess. Do I have this trust bridge built with this employee? Is this the type of conversation that I can have or not? As opposed to just going through the motions without really assessing the level of relationship between the two parties. That level of relationship really should be assessed quite vitally.
How do you do that?
Well, reflect back, like what are the type of conversations, what are the things that employee has raised? I can tell you from my experience, I have had some talk to me about things that they probably wouldn't talk to with a good friend or a family. I have had that over my tenure with employees. So that tells me they must trust to some level because, why come and dish out certain things that really probably should be kept private and it's something that I probably couldn't address. However, in reflecting, it aided them because it allowed me to be aware and accommodate for certain symptoms, behaviors, changes, attendance to that person. So that's a very key element around one aspect of helping.
That was Shane Muller, founder of SafeWatch. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow @BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Forvis Mazars. To find out more, visit forvismazars.com/au. That's FORVISMAZARS.com/au.